to all new audience members who are joining us right now. My name is René Spitz. I'm part of the board of the IF Design Foundation, an educational foundation that is committed to scientific research and education in the context of design. I would like to introduce you to Annette Diefenthaler. She's also member of the board of the IF Design Foundation. We will both guide you through this event today. Our audience is much larger than you here in space because we are looking forward to publish what we learned from all of these impulses, from your inputs in these workshops. And we publish them not only as a book, maybe, but also online. So we have a growing international community. This is why we talk in English, and this is why everything is recorded. So documentation is a huge part of this project, and we share this for free. So if you didn't get a copy of the printed book, no problem, you can download it on our website for free. So we share everything that we learn with our audience for free.
We have been approaching this question of what does the future of teaching and learning design actually look like through the series of symposia with several topics. The first workshop that we started with was focused on the topic of teaching and learning sciences. One of the things that we found was, despite the fact that nobody on our research tour actually talked about teaching and learning sciences, we heard this undercurrent of people asking, well, how do we do this? What does it mean to teach courage? How do we create psychological safety in the classroom? And we now know so much about how people learn that we felt that it would be a great miss not to bring that into this. That was a great success, I would claim to say. And the second topic that we focused on was personal growth. If you're interested in topics such as emotional intelligence or resilience and how to bring that into design education, the recordings of those sessions are also online on the website, and they're really well worth watching, so I do recommend those. This session was structured the same way how the previous ones were, which is by bringing together a group of design educators, about 30, I think this time we were even more, 40 or so, to spend a full day receiving impulses from amazing speakers who are joining us for this, and then taking those impulses and working with that content to think about what does that mean for our own practice as design educators. And we have found for that to be a really hopeful way of instigating change. We can publish all the books and videos in the world, but unless there are individuals who take that into their classrooms to do something with them, it's not going to have any impact at all. We have quite a few people here who are not in these sessions for the first time. Who has participated in a previous symposium? Can I see a show of hands? Wow, look at that. It's about a third, right? And that's really encouraging that we have folks here who are coming back and becoming part of this larger learning community. So with that, we are moving to today's topic. So the last couple of days, we're focused on the topic of artificial intelligence. What is this technology that somehow has existed for 20 or more years, but all of a sudden showed up yesterday, right? What does it mean for us in design education? And most of all, really, what happens when we play with it? That's what we got to do. We're excited to share that with you. And I want to invite those of you who have just joined us today to also contribute to improving design education by taking the impulses from today with you, right? And asking questions and engaging in this at large. With that, I would like to invite our first speaker, that is Professor Dr. John Zimmerman, up here to join us. Thank you, John, for being here. To John, AI is nothing new, right? He spent more than 20 years designing AI products and services. This includes time at Philips, right? Where he did research, and I found this really fascinating. You co-invented a method for scrolling touchscreens which I believe everybody here is using, right? So this is the man behind that technology. John also spent several years working in film, video, and multimedia production, and joined Carnegie Mellon University in 2002 as professor for artificial intelligence and human-computer interaction. And your research is concerned with human AI interaction, human-robot interaction, and AI innovation processes. One of the things you said yesterday that really shifted my thinking was you said designers tend to think of AI as a superhuman intelligence. And then you made it very clear that it is actually not that. So please tell us, what is it? Thank you, John.
Hi, I'm excited to be here today just to share a little about myself and my work. I'm a user experience designer and a service designer, but really I do design as research, and I'm a professor in a computer science department by choice because I want to work with people that can build the kinds of things I want to envision. So I've been designing human-AI interaction for 25 years. The very first system I designed for Philips was a TV show recommender back when Xena Warrior Princess was a first-run TV show. And this is actually, it was when we worked on this that we developed a method of scrolling that is on everyone's phone and tablet, but the focus of the research was the TV show recommender. And to me, it's like one of those lovely moments where you can have a very technical focus, but it's design that makes all the profit. This is a fun little project I worked on. We were interested in trying to make parents feel like better parents through their interaction with tech. So we gave location-enabled phones to families. We learned the pickups and drop-offs of everyone, and we could tell when is there a child that should be getting picked up, but no parent is moving towards the child. So it's like a smoke detector for forgetting your kids. And on a little more serious, I've done a bunch of work in healthcare. This is an interface we did that helps cardiologists decide when to implant a mechanical heart. So sort of, how do we situate AI in very life and death decisions? About 6 years ago, I kind of took a shift in my work and began to think, what is the process that we're using to design for AI? And I was frustrated that sort of everything in the world was the best that could be imagined by someone with a PhD in machine learning. And these are like wonderfully smart people, but they're not amazingly creative. So I became really interested in how can we make it easier for designers to bring their creative skills to really think of AI in an entirely new way. And just start with kind of AI's super amazing. This is an image of the Kiva robots. This is these robots organize warehouses and they drive the shelves around. And so as people pack boxes, the thing you need is always right there. Amazon was so impressed by this, they bought the company and they made them get rid of all their other clients. So it's like exclusively Amazon. Another great example for me is smart pricing by Airbnb. They're doing kind of simple analytics to predict what's the most that you could rent your place for. And to me, it's like giving CEO-level business analytics to anyone just sort of renting their space. Finally, a little over a year ago, ChatGPT came out, lots of interest in LLMs and foundation models. This has been revolutionary, maybe a little irresponsible, but definitely transformative. And this tremendous success you see around AI really implies that we know what we're doing, but we don't. So right now, about 85% of all AI initiatives fail to get to deployment. I can't even get them out the door. Of the projects that do reach deployment, about half of them fail. So our failure rate's slightly more than 90%. this is a place where maybe some design thinking can help. And so this became really interesting for me. The four main reasons projects fail. One is you just can't build the model. You're working on something that's too hard. Your data's not good enough. You're just never going to achieve model performance. Another big one is your system will cost more money than it can ever generate. A great example here is Amazon's Alexa. They're losing $10 billion a year on Alexa. Didn't really think through the financial model, just pushed it into the market. The tech works great, but it's all premised on the idea that people would shop, and they never sort of prototyped that because no one's shopping over Alexa. Another reason projects fail is they don't produce value for users. Everything in healthcare is like this. They're making a bunch of systems. Clinicians don't think these are helpful, so they simply don't use them. And then the final reason projects fail are for ethical reasons. So biased data, privacy violations, and sort of these are the four main things we need to be aware of when we're running a process to create new AI products and services. But failure's not our only problem. My team has noticed a lot of situations where just things aren't getting made, and we call this low-hanging fruit, situations where a little bit of AI could have a big impact, and it's wanted both by users and by service providers. So one of my favorite examples in this space is Instagram. You may have heard of Instagram. This is a Meta company. They have the world's best data scientists, the world's best UX designers. Instagram really wants influencers to post. When influencers post, they attract a lot of users that consume ads that make money for Instagram. But the Instagram app never learns which tags influencers use when they post, and it makes them type the same tags over and over and over every time they post. So why can the best data scientists and the best UX designers simply not notice these obvious situations? In thinking about AI innovation, it's important to keep a distinction between invention and innovation. So for me, Philips' creation of the cassette recorder is an invention. This is a new capability for recording and playing back audio. Designers do really well with this. We take those capabilities, we recognize when someone needs it, and we create a product form so people experience those capabilities as valuable and meaningful. So you get things like boom boxes, letting kids take music to the playground, home answering machines, meaning you didn't have to stay at home waiting for an important call, and Walkmans, which gave people a very personal music experience. This kind of innovation does not happen right now in AI, but it's definitely a space where design could have a big impact. As I talk to companies, what I repeatedly hear is data science teams come up with ideas customers don't want. Design teams come up with ideas that can't be built. Can we fix this? So I want to just spend a little bit of time on why projects fail, but kind of a quick summary is they fail because we're choosing to make the wrong things. And again, this is a space where design can really have an impact. A big part of the problem is design teams don't get invited to participate until they've already decided what to build. And no amount of polishing the wrong thing makes it the right thing. I've been designing software since the early 80s. We called this putting lipstick on the pig, and somehow when we innovate with AI, we are returning to software practices from the 80s. Does not work. Another problem is designers think of AI as a superhuman intelligence. This is a huge problem. That is not what AI is. I'm going to blame the media. The media loves clickbait stories like Target knows teen is pregnant before parents, or Google engineer thinks chatbot is sentient. These are like situations that are not actually true, but they perpetuate a myth. And so what happens is when designers and domain experts ideate, they focus on only things that are like super difficult for a human to do, where you need nearly perfect model performance to create value. And so the majority of the opportunity space is simply never explored. UX designers also struggle to understand what AI can do. There's a lot of literature that describes mechanisms, how an AI system makes an inference, but there's really no resources describing what are all of the things I can do with AI. User-centered design does not work, and I've run into this problem repeatedly. We keep trying it, we keep failing. Learn from our mistakes. AI projects start by choosing what to make. You can't take a user-centered approach because you've already said the solution must be AI. And when you do that, you turn teams into innovation hammers looking for nails, and you apply AI in a bunch of inappropriate places. So we need a different strategy for moving forward. My team's been doing some work really thinking about how to improve this. One of the things we really leaned in on is this issue of capabilities. So we spent 3 years really trying to understand what are all the things that AI can do. We looked across 14 different industrial domains. We pulled out a taxonomy, and that gave us sort of 8 high-level capabilities. We really thought we had cracked this problem. We recruited a bunch of designers, ran some pilot studies to show how much better they would be at ideating with our awesome tool, and it was a total failure. They were much better at thinking of a broad set of capabilities to use, but pretty much all of their ideas were unbuildable. And this kind of made us rethink what we were doing. And in searching around, we became inspired by some work from Google. So this is Casey Korzhakoff. She was the chief decision scientist at Google, and she trained their teams how to identify use cases where AI would be valuable. And she used this metaphor of AI as an island full of drunk people. AI can do things really fast, and it can handle an inhuman quantity of information because there are a lot of drunk people. But they're drunk people, so don't expect them to be smart, and don't expect them to do high-quality work. Where do you need speed? Where do you need scale, but not particularly intelligence? This is where AI makes money. We went back and looked at the 48 AI features that we had used to create our taxonomy. We mapped it to what we call the expertise model performance matrix, where the vertical axis is like how hard would this task be for a human, and the horizontal axis is how well does the model have to perform before humans start to think of this thing as valuable. And what was fascinating for us is 25, so more than half of all of the ideas that are commercially successful AI services have a model performance that's less than 90%. So this made us really think we need an innovation process for discovering what are situations where kind of super mediocre AI creates value. Because if you talk to data scientists, they can totally make mediocre AI. Definitely feeling they can do this. So I'm doing some work right now in the ICU, collaborating with a great set of clinicians and data scientists. We have a fabulous data set. And so we use this as a test case to try new ways of innovating. And the first thing we did was to just brainstorm with the doctors, nurses, and data scientists. None of them had ever brainstormed before, so this was new. They were highly skeptical. We just walked them through, and they actually found it super useful. But when we looked at the ideas, we plotted those on an impact effort matrix. Everything was difficult, and only half of the ideas were valuable. This is not a good process. So it made us rethink, and so we did another session with them where we really tried to prime them with examples of where is AI sort of working in a mediocre way but producing value. And when we did that, we produced all of our ideas that were valuable, and now half of them were going to be easy to develop. So it was transformative, and it's really kind of mixing human-centered design and technology-centered design together to sort of find the best of both worlds. We've been doing this with a bunch of companies. We've done it with insurance companies, accounting firms, consulting firms, and we're getting really good results at just producing better ideas. And so I just want to give you 5 quick takeaways from our work that you might find useful. 1, don't try to replace an expert. AI is not that smart. Think about replacing an intern. Or better yet, think about situations where it's better than nothing. That is like a sweet spot for AI. Second, be explicit in the way that you frame your innovation process. Are you versioning? Are you just trying to make little features that are about for the next version of a product? So you might think 6 months into the future, that's great for UX design. Are you thinking of a major feature 18 months to 2 years in the future? That's really excellent for service design. If you're looking farther in the future than that, you really shouldn't involve design, because AI is changing so fast, these are really only technical questions. You really want design to function as facilitation. There's a lot of people talking about design-led innovation. That is not good in AI. Designers have absolutely no credibility. But design can definitely be an equal partner, and it plays an effective role at bringing domain experts and data scientists together and get them to work really well together. In thinking about what design adds, it's really this issue of ideation. We can help people do a better job of thinking of many things to make, and we can hold them accountable for really exploring spaces where model performance is not high, but we're still creating value in the world. So it's bringing that creativity, but it's not about designers coming up with the ideas. It's about them facilitating others in doing that work. Finally, we've created an AI brainstorming toolkit, and we are definitely happy to share and have others use this. So I'll just give you a second if you want to grab the QR code. We've used this again with many companies with great success. Finally, just going to take a second to thank my sponsors, National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, the Center for Machine Learning and Health, Accenture, and Bloomberg. I'll just jump that back for anybody that wants it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. We had an opportunity yesterday to try out designing mediocre AI using simple ideas, and it is so difficult to do that. I really got to say that kind of limiting your ideas to something that then is actually practical, it is not a skill that I naturally have. So I so appreciate how you set that frame. It really shifted my thinking. And I believe that that's true for some of you as well. So I'd love to invite those of you who were reflecting on what you learned from John's talk and share a little bit what you might want to do based off that in the future. Can I ask those group participants to come up? Thank you so much, Laura and Santiago.
Thank you.
And feel free to briefly say your names and introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. I am Santiago Hurtado. I am a PhD student at the Technical University of Munich. I come from the learning sciences more than the design. My background is in psychology, and right now I'm doing my research on social media algorithms and also on AI ethics in education.
And my name is Laura Schütz, and I'm doing a PhD also at Technical University of Munich in human-computer interaction.
So what we gathered from yesterday was that what should we focus on for design education, and this is how we tackled kind of this task. We were thinking about what can AI do for our students, what can AI do for us as educators, and also what can AI not do for our students. And it was very interesting to hear the talk and also start to think about how to demystify AI and AI capabilities. And getting these kind of breakdown of AI capabilities also helped us think what are things or ways that we can think about AI differently that helps us target those designs of AI tools in very specific ways. Nevertheless, it was still, as Annette was saying, incredibly hard for us to come up with things. We came up with many crazy ideas that in the end, here John came over and was like, I don't know about that. Like, and this was always a little bit frustrating in how hard it is actually to think about simple features and simple implementations of AI. And we also started to think in our group, okay, how can we prototype something that kind of channels this spirit of simplifying AI tasks? And we thought about, okay, these metaphors of explain me like I'm 5, so like a 5-year-old, or maybe the drunk person on an island, or maybe this intern, and trying to grab from this. But still, it wasn't quite what we were thinking of, I think. And so we thought, okay, so how can we implement designing AI as a material that can be used for design education, and how can we implement that in our own prototype? We came up with a tool that would be feasible, like a feasibility check for students to use, that helps them think about, is your idea of AI feasible?
If we don't have John anymore around, who's going to stop us and say, this is superhuman intelligence you're thinking about right now? So we thought it would be really great to have a John Zimmerman AI feasibility check.
We went meta. So we want to showcase a little bit of this prototype and how this would look. We thought it would be interesting when we think about a class, when we're having students design AI tools, as we envision probably is going to be happening more and more in design education, and how could they approach this task of simplifying their designs? So I'm going to role play as a student in the design class, much like yesterday.
And I will be the John Zimmerman AI feasibility check.
All right, so I think I came up with a cool idea, is that I want to build an AI tool that will detect when my attention span is decreasing while watching tutorials or online lectures, right? And if I am drifting off and kind of dozing off, it will speed up the video or do something to kind of shake me and pay attention again. What do you think about this?
But how does the AI know if a decrease in attention is boredom or distraction or something else?
I mean, but would it be feasible to just train it and to know, so it knows when boredom is happening?
Sure, yes. But it might take 38 hours of videos of bored faces, 1 year, and $200 million to develop.
Oh. I don't think I have the resources to do this. What should I do?
Well, then AI is probably not the right design material for your idea. Or you could consider a more low-hanging fruit. AI generates an image of a low-hanging fruit.
That is all.
Thank you so much, you two, and thank you to the rest of the group as well. Before we move on, John, I just wanted to ask, are there any last words that you'd like to add? Or
That amazingly felt like the class that I teach.
Wonderful.
So thank you. And I'm excited to introduce you now to Dr. Madeline Gannon. And we have a new slide for this. Yes, Madeline Gannon. Also known as the robot whisperer. Madeline specializes in convincing robots to do things they were never intended to do. Her work blends techniques in art, design, computer sciences, and robotics to forge new futures for human-robot relations. She's known as one of the top 10 women in robotics industry, and she has been a World Economic Forum cultural leader, a robotics and AI researcher at NVIDIA, and a former artist in residence at the ETH Zürich, Autodesk Pier 9, and the Carnegie Mellon Studio for Creative Inquiry. Madeline. One of the things that really stuck with me from your talk yesterday was when you said, I want to live in a world where robots are curious and alive and kind. Thank you so much for sharing a glimpse of that vision to all others.
Thank you.
So this is going to be a much abridged version of the talk yesterday, where I shared a little bit about my work, the way that I wield technology and design to make visions of the future that I would like to see in the world. And so I shared a lot about animacy and agency and how design can impact robotics. So I've built up a bit of a career traveling the world, taming these big beasts of machines to, instead of doing short, repetitive tasks over and over and over again, to really be improvisational and free and kind. And I use my training as an architect and all of the hypersensitivities to what I have to how people move through space. And by learning how to program machines, I was able to give those sensibilities to these machines. So for me, I feel a little bit of an outsider in the world of robotics. I feel a little bit of an outsider of the world of architecture and design, because I do my best to really blend these two things. And for me as well, it's important that the people who are trained to work with the humanities, to create new culture, to be deeply embedded in how technology comes to shape that. So we've really started off by starting to question what is a robot. And we have a lot of pop culture references in our mind. When we close our eyes and we think of a robot, we might think of these humanoid things like Osimo or C-3PO or these Boston Dynamics Atlas robots. But I find it much more productive to think of a robot as anything with a mechanical mind and mechanical muscles. And with that broader definition, you can start to see that there's many robots already around us, living amongst us, from industrial robots that I tend to work with, to self-driving vehicles, delivery drones, to in hospitals, robots that deliver towels and medicines from a central resource area to individual patients, to our toys, and even our 3D printers are a form of a robot. Washing machines, very dumb, but also a type of robot. What I love about working with industrial robots in particular is that these are big, giant machines that have superhuman speed and superhuman endurance, precision, and reliability, and yet they're locked away in these factories doing very boring tasks, living very boring lives. And they're also this symbol that we have in our culture that carries our fear of our own obsolescence, that this technology could replace us. And these machines in particular are a vessel for that, but it's kind of how we feel about artificial intelligence, both software and hardware. We have this anxiety about the technology that's coming our way. One thing that I find quite interesting is that the birth of robotics in industry, this is the Unimate robot arm from the early 1970s, was really being explored at the same time by engineers inventing new machines for art purposes. On the left is an exhibition from Cybernetic Serendipity a couple years earlier. And I feel that for some reason, we got stuck on the timeline where these machines needed to be efficient and optimized and repetitive. And I really want to get back on the timeline where these machines were curious, kind, and alive. And so that's the work that, with the same set of skills, with the same machines, that's the world that I try to make with my work. And so this was an installation in the Design Museum in London. And this is Mimis. She usually lives on a factory assembly line in Birmingham in the UK. And the manufacturer was kind enough to let Mimis come and live in the museum for 6 months and have a bit of a holiday. And so she got to put down her tool and really just live and exist here. And so I created a software system, an interaction design system, and a sensing system for her to be able to see the crowd of people, pick out who might be the most interesting, and go hang out with them for a bit. And when they were too boring, she was allowed to just get bored and go find someone else to play with. And what I loved about taking this work out of academic research and out of industry and bringing it into cultural institutions is that now 100,000 people over the course of 6 months have an opportunity to engage with technology in a way that gets them to think about their own perspectives and develop their own opinions about what our future with these machines should be. Too often, we think that technology, the most probable route of technology is the way that it must be. But we have a lot of agency in guiding the direction of how rapidly advancing technology intersects with society. And designers, I think, play a frontline role in deciding that. I believe that designers can create technology. The tools and education that we have is becoming way more accessible. From what we've seen from a lot of, like what we'll see from Yusuf later as well, is that these AI-powered tools can also be used for learning, for our skills to stay relevant longer in our career and to learn new things faster. And so the work that I do works on top of open source hardware and open source software to both build on top of these creative coding communities and also give that knowledge back so no one else has to go do a PhD to learn all this stuff. And so Mimes was a way to get one robot to interact with a crowd of people. And because of that, the World Economic Forum invited me to explore what is the future like when we're surrounded by these machines. If their vision for Industry 4.0 really comes true, now all of a sudden, they'll be all around us and amongst us, and what might that look like? And so for me, I built these robots that what we don't think about these machines is that unlike us, where we begin to perceive and feel and think about the world with our own body, these 10 machines have one central brain, and their senses are distributed in the space around them. So they're like a hive entity, and their behaviors can reflect and reverberate amongst each other. So here's a little bit of how they look and seem. These are all tools that again, I built in the simulation software that I think, especially from designers who are very familiar with computer-aided design or computer-aided manufacturing, there's a really easy bridge to begin to use that to make machines move and to make machines think through geometry. And what I've found from this work is that these machines that don't look like us and don't act like us and don't think like us, that if we begin to make them move in a certain way, we can shift from a metaphor of control to more of a metaphor of connection. And that's, I think, a more apt relationship that we're heading towards as these machines get smarter, as they get more autonomous, as they get more independence and intelligence. And so a lot of my work, I try to be inspired by the natural world. I see these machines not as automation infrastructure, but as mechanical creatures in this robotic ecosystem that's living amongst us. And I had the opportunity about 2 years ago in Zurich to come and be living inside this factory for robotic architecture and retrain their machines to behave more like a flock of swans than a tool for assembling pavilions. And it was a really delightful experience to begin to work with them. And simulation technology is really at the core of what I do. A lot of what I have been able to do is also, this is a sensor that's picking up my body. And so I'm able to translate my understanding of space and how our bodies relate to each other in space and feed that knowledge to a robot. And that would not have been possible without an architectural education. That would not have been possible today in how robotics and how machine learning and AI is taught in there, because it's such a wealth of domain knowledge that you have to have through deep education in design, in the arts, in the humanities. And so hopefully in the future we can begin to merge these educations together. I also believe in I am really lucky. I have amazing friends that have fun toys. And so my friends here just got, this is the world's biggest robot. It weighs 5,000 kilograms. And so we decided to put a big giant googly eye on the end of it. And what I wanted to really explore here is just how little information our minds need to see life in inanimate objects. So it's a black circle on a white circle, and all of a sudden, you get it to move a certain way, you get its motors to roar, and it starts to really come alive. And I see this as such a powerful material that designers know this. Designers know that a couple subtle, intentional gestures can transform meaning and make connection. And we can begin to put this into physical systems that are alive with us. And lastly, I shared some creative practitioners that I am really inspired by and that are also really pushing at the fringes of how the arts and robotics begin to intersect with society. So this is from Golan Levin, who is a mentor of mine from the Studio for Creative Inquiry at Carnegie Mellon University. And this is a robotic worm eyeball googly eye that we have a tradition in the studio to put eyeballs on lots of things that come in. Random International is a UK-based creative studio that is making living mechanical creatures like these drones that they respond to the people going below them. This was developed for a dance troupe, a performing arts troupe, to begin to have choreography below and choreography above. And so the relationship between set design and performance arts is really changing. I think that robots don't even really need to have digital brains. They can have intelligence built into the material system. These are a bunch of toilet plungers attached together that are pushed through a minefield to detonate mines. The intelligence is built into the material system, and it serves its own purpose. And similarly with Theo Jansen, with his strand beasts that again use wind, use water to wander the shorelines. There are lots of, this is some good friends who are very talented artists and designers exploring robots as creatures and also using robots for non-industrial purpose. That's the mission of their studio, art studio, is to reuse these machines for non-industrial purposes. Su-Wen Chung is a brilliant visual artist, performing artist, who collaborates with her own troupe of machines. What's lovely about this is that Su-Wen is inspired by how the machines are moving, and the machines are taking in data from whatever city she's performing in and using that to inform their own pathway through the drawing. Adi Wagenknecht, who's an artist based in Austria, not too far from here actually, did this portraiture, very traditional form of blue chip artwork, but she's doing this portraiture around her body, letting a robot vacuum begin to paint around her, showing sort of the absence of female bodies in art. Robots can be entire environments, so this is just using light and robotics lights and a bit of fancy fog machines to really begin to bring an entire atmosphere to light. And these machines can also live beyond the extent of their body, like this robot that shoots clay pellets to build giant cavernous caves in Zurich. And there's also an entire community of architects now that are building purpose-built, one-use specific machines to make their own structures. So this is my friend Maria Jablonina, based out of University of Toronto. And she built a series of robots that begin to weave and pass cable amongst each other to autonomously build their own web of space. So we're living at a very exciting time for designers, architects, artists to really take the helm and provide leadership in how this technology comes and to touch the physical world. And we left the workshop with a prompt, with a question: what if all the things in our life were animate and alive? And so we broke into groups and had a little bit of a prompt thinking about starting with a thing, like a table, a lamp, a bed, a door, a shoe, giving it a personality, and then building a narrative around that. So a table that is maybe a little bit vain might not want water put on it without a coaster. So it would begin to dip and move and throw the water off to protect itself. And then we discussed some of the practical applications that could hold. So it was a quick exercise, but again, starting to think about this world that we're racing to, that everything can be alive. With a $4 computer chip, you can have something that is connected to the internet. It's very accessible, that we're literally getting to a point where everything can be connected and alive. And hopefully we can build the technology in the way that we would like it to be, and not the way that it's coming towards us currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madeline, for this very inspiring short version of your talk yesterday. I would like now to invite two members of workshop team number 2 to come and join me up here. And we are curious to hear what stuck with you after learning about Madeline's work yesterday. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, René. So my name is Steven Stannard. This is Mario Weiser and Andreas Lanik. Unfortunately, well, we were a much larger group, but a lot of them had to already leave because of some sicknesses. So this is not all our thinking, but our collaborative gathering our thoughts. What very much inspired us, and I think you've just all seen that in what Madeline showed, is how kind these robots can be and how humans can go into connection with robots. Something you usually don't really see in the media anywhere. And then we talked about that in the reflection, and this image came up of an elephant interacting with a small toddler. The elephant being, of course, the robot, this huge machine, but still being very kind and interacting with the child that is so fragile and small. And from that on, with the elephant, we explored how can we teach that in our university courses. And we came up with creating a semester project called The Robot Circus. And the idea is that in this circus, the robots, they replace animals. And a new kind of circus emerges, and the circus is, as you know, in a circus, it's always joyful. There's some tension when you sit there and you don't know if this exercise will work out or not. Usually it does, but you don't really know. And then the robots actually perform this. The robots interact with the audience and act differently, perform differently, depending on how the audience reacts. We also came up with a small curriculum. This, of course, will be not only feasible and possible with just designers. We will have an interdisciplinary semester with computer science scientists, engineers, probably also psychologists, and so on. The first step is that we take the students to a circus, and they have to observe the human-animal interactions, the human-audience interactions, kind of understand that what is taking place there. They have to understand how this whole performance of a circus works in order to then, later on, be able to create how they can do that with the robots. And they also have to go and visit a robot factory, somebody who does robots with excellence, so that they can get to know the robots themselves. Industrial robots preferably. And what we also learned yesterday, and that we would kind of take on in the second half of the Double Diamond process, is that we as designers, we shift to facilitators in the second half, bringing all of those other disciplines together and kind of keeping the focus on what the intention was, so not making something technologically and pushing it out, but creating this experience of the circus. And that is then the second task of the role of the design students in this semester project. I think we were all quite eager to try that out. One of the colleagues that left already, she collected all the contact details, so maybe we'll actually manage to put that into practice. Thank you very much. Thank you for the inspiration.
So fabulous. I find that this part was not what I expected to be moving, right? But it's so fun. So thank you for that. I would like to next invite Savannah and Seth to join me up here. So Savannah Kunovsky is a managing director at IDEO. That's how I know her. She's also the global head of the Emerging Technology Lab there. And in doing that, she helps businesses move from where they are today to an actual workable and desirable future. And in her work, as I know well, you always uphold a real commitment to humanity and the planet. And you live that in everything that you do. In previous lives, which there are many, Savannah has pioneered emotion AI for mental health with the very famous Dr. John Gottman. She co-founded a chain of tech education schools in sub-Saharan Africa. And she also built a coding bootcamp industry as a software engineer at Hack Reactor. So Savannah is nothing short of incredibly impressive. She's been recognized by MIT, Forbes, and the World Economic Forum. And I'm so thrilled that you were here. And Savannah brought a friend, Seth Trudeau, which is fabulous. He co-founded ALX, the African Leadership Academy. It's the largest technology and design skills bootcamp provider in sub-Saharan Africa. And Seth was a member of the founding team of the African Leadership University. I think I just messed up the name of ALX, did I?
It's because it's an acronym that doesn't stand for anything.
There we go. Sorry. So ALX and African Leadership University. Today, Seth is founder and managing director of a company with a fabulous name, Routine Chaos, which is a design innovation studio in the Netherlands, focused on the role of emerging tech in shaping a vibrant human presence in a sustainable world. We had a really interesting discussion this morning about a comment that you made yesterday, Seth. You said tools itself are generally neutral. And then Savannah and I were sort of questioning whether that's actually true. So I'm really excited to hear from both of you about what does it mean to be responsible with AI? What does it mean to design for planet and humanity?
Well, hello. We're very happy to be here, and thank you so much for bringing us and convening this really incredible group. We've learned so much from everybody, and it's, being the one holding the microphone doesn't mean that we're not taking so much away from this, so appreciation all around. As Annette said, I'm Savannah. I head IDEO's Emerging Tech Lab, and this is my imaginary friend, Seth. It'll make more sense once he starts talking. A quick overview of, that's all the people that heard him talk yesterday. A quick overview of just kind of stance on AI and on generative AI. So the thing that we've all been hearing about so much for the last year or so is generative AI. But for quite some time, our stance has been around, rather than artificial intelligence, which is a term that really distances us from the technology and takes kind of our agency away from us, thinking about augmented intelligence. So to Madeline's point, how do we think of these as systems that are augmenting and working alongside us and are a part of our world rather than something that is different from us and separate and can feel more like an enemy? So how do we think about augmented intelligence, which is using AI to enhance humans' capabilities? And if I had to give you a quick summary of my personal thoughts right now about what's happening, is that AI has and will change life as we know it. It's not just that it's come out in the last couple of years, it's been in research for many decades, and we all interact with many AI systems through our technology and through other parts of our daily life on a day-to-day basis. So it already has changed our life, and it will continue to change our lives in many ways. We can't ignore it. It's not something that we can just say, no, this won't exist. It is going to be evolving from all different corners of the planet and all different industries and ecosystems and types of people. There are incredible opportunities, but we need to proceed with intention. And we're really in a place where, as these technologies are evolving, we're in a great moment to kind of take a step back and think about how do we really want to interact with these technologies? How do we want them to fit into our lives? How do we want to design the systems and the products and the services that are using them?
So we're zeroing in and really focusing specifically on generative AI, which is the kind of large language model driven things that have emerged into the mainstream in the last year and a half. So these are OpenAI's GPT models, Mistral, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini, Midjourney, things like that. Because what's happening with this is that in the space of design, it's influencing both the process of how designers do the work, as well as John was kind of talking about earlier, the kinds of products and services that are possible. And so we want to look at a few examples of some experiments and things that are happening that are demonstrative of the kind of affordances of generative AI, as well as things that kind of start to ask us to think about what does it mean to design responsibly, and what are the kinds of things we need to be mindful of as we design. So I'm going to just take a look at an example from IDEO related to material design and thinking about how generative AI enables a designer to look at possibilities that might not have naturally occurred or been emergent. And so, we all know that design is often not a linear process. And the same is true if we think about how we might incorporate something like a Midjourney or an LLM into the initial design process. In this case, you can imagine how a designer might be able to start by describing some of what they need. Do you need a material that is durable, resilient, yet comforting, right? Using natural language and being able to get some material ideas that are generated by the machine, right? Now, in this case, the machine doesn't actually have to be an expert. The machine just needs to be the provocateur, because the person is the expert. If the machine says something absurd and stupid, like, why don't you use dynamite? You just discard it. You're like, that was dumb, right? But in this case, what we started to see was the machine suggesting certain natural products and processes. So whereas we might naturally think about more synthetic materials, it was starting to suggest things that are naturally occurring materials. And that creates a little bit of a spark of interest, right? And so as the expert who is actually working with the machine in a complementary manner, you can take that on and now you start to think, yes, what if we were using seaweed and moss instead of cotton and linen, for instance? And so then out of that, you start to look around at, okay, so materials have limitations and constraints on them. What are the kinds of forms that might be suggested by this? And so, you can look at it, and this is where you can, again, feed this back in. You put it into something like an image generator. What would a home goods product constructed of seaweed and moss start to look like? And again, if it gives you something absurd and ridiculous, you discard, but you keep tweaking and playing around with it, and something starts to emerge. You can see it could be a ball, but it could be something like an athletic shoe or a beachwear shoe. You can look at this blending of different things. Okay, what would it look like if we were to take this form of a chair and think about this material of the seaweed? And it starts to give you something a bit emergent that wouldn't have otherwise occurred to us, right? So this is the use of these kinds of tools in the process of design, where you have, it's not going to replace the expert, right? Just as John said. It's the expert that is still driving and piloting and controlling this, but it can act as a very provocative partner in a way that, if you're sitting in IDEO and you're surrounded by 5 other brilliant people, a lot of this happens, right? This is already something that might be happening. But there are lots of designers that don't have that happening for them all the time. Or you might have that team, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you know that they're going to be real mad at you if you call them up to be like, I've got an idea I want to talk about. Midjourney doesn't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. It'll play around with all of your ideas, right? Now, you should be mindful that if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, your ability to discern what is an absurd idea that should immediately be chucked out will be diminished. Regardless, this is part of how it influences the design process.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of looking at augmentation of our design process and switching gears here into thinking about who is going to be using the tools and services that we create, who is going to be shaped by what we create. So we did some proactive research with Gen Z about a year ago to understand their perspectives on generative AI. And as somebody who is definitely not Gen Z, just enjoys stealing from their fashion taste sometimes, their perspectives are so different and so compelling and so important to the products and services and kind of access to influence that we have, that it was really important for us to lay these foundations in order to do the work that we do. Gen Z is more and more at this stage entering the workforce. They're being impacted by the advent of these technologies and by their existence, but for the most part, they're not in the room to shape them. And so we did a bunch of social listening, which means that we went onto social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram. We did what you should never do and read the comments section. We watched a bunch of videos that were all telling us perspectives that Gen Z has on generative AI. We then took those perspectives and started to shape different design provocations, concepts, and ideas. And then we did co-creation sessions. We brought together panels of Gen Z folks and asked them for their thoughts on the ideas that we had come up with and to help us shape them and redesign them so that they actually made sense for them. So first off, a couple of the design provocations. The first is this passion coach. And so this is a tool that can understand you and your interests and your passions and your hobbies and can help you figure out how to approach those. A lot of the thing that young people are constantly doing is just trying to understand themselves and their place in the world and what they might want to do. And so this is an automated tool that can kind of look at you and see you as a person and say, you know what, there might be a good opportunity for you to connect with these people or this place or try and experiment with this thing. The AI friend, which I'm sad that we didn't call the friend, with AI in the middle, is a friend that can be inside of your friend group. And if you're talking to your friends and looking for a restaurant recommendation or you're planning a trip, it can give you suggestions. Or if there's conflict brewing, then it can start to mediate that. So rather than thinking about just having an AI who is your constant companion and is you alone by yourself talking to this, actually integrating it into your social life. And so there are a bunch more concepts, but a couple of the principles that came out of our research were, first being, deepen my connections, don't close them down. So AI-driven connections, not AI-driven interfaces. Utilize Gen AI to curate creative communities, ensuring access and seamless connections to like-minded people with similar objectives. So really thinking about this as a connective tool and as a way of bringing people together, as a way of creating more collaboration, more friendship, pushing against the loneliness that we're seeing so much of today. They also said, help me live my best life, but don't live it for me. So allow me the opportunity to experience learning moments for myself, empowering me with tools and information that help me navigate these moments with intentionality and care. So they don't want everything to just be perfect and streamlined and simplified. They want to have the experience of navigating and understanding what the possibilities are for them and for their lives and for their friends. Which is similar to honor the messiness of being human, don't pretend we're perfect. Help me show up as the perfectly imperfect human that I am. So again, as a millennial, my impulse to technology is make this as easy for me as possible and take the pain away and automate and augment and just, try to make things simple so that I can go and live my life. And Gen Z doesn't want that. They want to live their lives. They want to have the experiences of heartbreak and hard things happen and messing up, and they don't want technology to just completely streamline and take things away, which I think we can learn a lot from as well. And I can learn a lot from as a designer in just allowing for that messiness, allowing for that imperfection, and being more open to the possibilities of technology in that way.
So there's a few things we want to share as far as just some considerations about designing with AI and designing for AI use cases. So starting with some of the big cautions, right? These both have to do with the way we use AI in design and the way that we design for AI products and services, right? Which is to the point that Annette mentioned earlier. Yesterday I was talking about how I think the tools are morally neutral. But the pushback that we were talking through this morning was the idea that while the tools may be morally neutral, we don't actually all agree on that, the people who have designed the tools and who have made them have their own set of biases and commitments and values, and those tend to show up in the tools. So the tools have biases. And that doesn't mean that you can't figure out ways to work around or even subvert the biases, but it is almost maliciously naive to pretend that they're not there. One is to be cautious. I think we should all be cautious about this across the board in terms of software, but particularly in terms of the kind of software that can kind of mimic human capabilities, that it is particularly primed for exploitation towards monetization. So that's something we want to be very careful about, that we're not creating exploitative tools. And in the example that Savannah is talking about, a lot of it comes from understanding what are the things people actually want and need and value versus trying to manipulate and drive them towards certain things that we want them to want. One that I feel like is pressing on all of our attention every day is the point of misinformation and manipulation, and just being cognizant of the fact that AI can make us believe that the Princess of England is fully well and there's no problem at all in terms of her current existence, when those of us that know that that's not true. And what I really mean is what I just said might be true and it might not be true. And we have no way of knowing, just because there was a manipulated photo released, what that actually means. These things can drive misinformation from all sides, right? From any different angle. And being aware of the fact that that is a thing that is possible, all of us, it's kind of like our attention to information accuracy needs to be at a level that it has never been before. And finally, there's a lot of important considerations around privacy. Both questions of where the data that these models have come from, where the data that these models use has come from, as well as the data that we're inputting and that we're feeding, how that's being used as well. But at the same time, there are some really, really valuable affordances to consider. It does create some possibilities that, in terms of the idea of how does it augment human existence. So, we've put together these kind of, Savannah, put together these 5 cards, using the royal we, by which I mean Savannah. just around different affordances that AI creates. So, the names are the third hand, the second skin, the detective, the lens, and the chameleon. So thinking about ways that you can actually assist yourself, that you can almost create a capability that you don't actually have and be able to leverage it. Or to be able to enhance your own skills, to be able to, if we think about the example of the material design, it's the kind of thing that probably a designer working with those materials in that scenario could do, but you can do it a lot faster with a different level of thoroughness, considering more things in that way. The detective is just about sifting through the noise, as there's lots and lots and lots of information you could be considerate of. How do you find what's signal, what's meaningful? The lens about gaining new perspective. How do you see something in a way that you wouldn't have seen it on your own? How do you broaden what you might consider? And then the chameleon about transforming to understand. How can you put a shift on something that seems like known or conventional? And I feel like this is one that I'm potentially butchering. How do you think about the chameleon?
I think about the fact that we have to be able to see things in new ways. And sometimes it's the evolution of the tools or whatever we're working with that needs to inform how we're seeing things. And so there's sort of a reverse inspiration that can happen.
Yeah, totally. Cool. This has been a really exciting couple days for us. So we just wanted to quickly just say thank you. It's been a real pleasure being with everyone. And we hope you build cool yet responsible things.
Thank you so much, you two. We got to play with chickens and roads and all kinds of fun things yesterday. And so I am excited to hear from a few folks who were thinking about what to do with what you learned from Seth and Savannah yesterday. Would you join me up here?
Hello.
Hi. Maybe we start with a quick introduction. I'm Jessica. I'm a media artist, filmmaker, animator, and I also teach and research in those fields.
Yeah, hello, I'm Philip. I'm also a media artist and a lecturer, also a researcher in this field.
Hi, I'm Andreas Huber. I'm industrial designer from Munich. I've been teaching some years at the Technical University of Munich, and now I'm managing our studios at FP Design in Germany.
Okay, so I'm a storyteller. So let's start with, imagine you're back in your studies. It's your first semester, and the semester already started a couple of weeks ago. You may unpacked your last box in your shared apartment, but you still feel lost and kind of overwhelmed by this gigantic institution. And you have already met some of your fellow students, maybe met some friends, and you ask them questions. So what could questions be? You ask people you just met at this strange place. Things like, when's the assignment due? Maybe, where do we meet tomorrow? Or what did we do last week because I missed class?
What is the curriculum?
Yeah, what is the curriculum? What's for lunch today? That's very important. So yeah, we came up with something that can help you with that. And it's something you may know, but it's newer and has more tech in it, and it's called the Tamagotchi.
Integrated the AI in the name, yeah?
Yeah, and it's your artificial fellow students that you can ask exactly those questions. So at the beginning, you might start with the same information. You can upload some floor plans, you can link it to the cafeteria menu, or upload your semester schedule, and then it can give you the answers to those questions. But there's even more.
Yeah, the idea is also related on some workshop experience we shared. You can fill it with all the information that you need in the beginning, from the new city, from the university, from your curriculum and everything. And over the time, your little TAM-I coachee grows with you as your companion, as your fellow during your experience being a student. And you can fill it with papers, books, and whatever. And you get a kind of individualized companion that assists you during your journey.
Yes, and over the course of your own studies, you develop or you grow, you progress, and so does your TAM-I coachee. So towards the end of the studies, it knows exactly what the list of very important books from your second semester photography class was, and you can ask it, okay, can you give me that list again, please? Or what projects you have made over the past 3 years, and then give you recommendations for personalized thesis themes, maybe, and things like that. Because it knows how you studied and when you did your projects and how much fun you had with them.
Yeah, and I think it's important to run a local LLM for this, that you have your own data, that is for yourself, that you have kind of interfaces to share it with your professors, and also in vice versa, that the professors also can say, okay, here is a link, add this to your TAM-I coachee. Yeah, this is the database, this is the AI. Yeah, that was the idea.
Thank you so much, Savannah, Seth. Any thoughts or comments?
We didn't get to go into this, but I love that, especially because I'm obsessed with the possibility of using AI to help animals talk and communicate with us. So thank you for reading my mind.
I just hope that you don't have to like keep feeding it and that it wakes you up in the middle of the night because it's yeah.
I don't want dogs to.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Last but not least, Yusuf Ahmad, the CEO of PlayLab, a tech nonprofit. Please come join me. Yes. A tech nonprofit that empowers educators and impact organizations to build their own AI tools rather than building tools for them. So prior to founding PlayLab, Yusuf led new product development for Tech for America, contributed to Scratch, which is a creative coding platform used by millions of kids. He researched at the MIT Media Lab and was on the founding team of ALU and ALX, a Pan-African network, we have heard of this, of universities and alternative higher education pathways. Yusuf, the central question I heard from you yesterday is, how do we lower the floor to who can create with AI? So please tell us more about your work that does exactly this.
Thank you, René. It's been wonderful spending time with some of you the last day, and I'm excited to meet some new friends today as well. René already did a lovely introduction. Some of you got to meet my daughter last night. That's the other perspective I bring, is that of a girl dad. But just a quick pulse. We asked this question yesterday, but we have more people in the room. Who here is using ChatGPT or other AI tools? Just raise your hands. Keep those hands raised if you're using those tools every week. Okay, so a lot of people. Now raise your hand if you've used generative AI to build a product. To build a product that's in the world, that's being used by other people. Keep those hands, raise them high. So maybe a handful of people, so not many people, have built products using generative AI. And we think that's a miss. Like one of the things that I'm really worried about is not many people are shaping the AI tools and technologies that most of us are using every day. There are about 100 million educators around the world. Depending on how you count, this is something that you can debate in many different ways. There are between as few as a few thousand to maybe up to 300,000 people shaping AI and AI technologies in different kinds of ways. I would argue that the tools most of us are using, you think about ChatGPT, you think about Midjourney, the real product decisions are made by, at most, a few hundred, maybe a few thousand people. The world that we're interested in creating at PlayLab is this question: how might we democratize who's actually creating with AI? We think a world where more people are shaping this technology, are shaping its use cases, are shaping how it looks in the world around us could be much more profound. And as Madeline said very beautifully, we don't need to be on a timeline where only a few people are creating a technology that all of us are using. Instead, we can create a different timeline where many people are creating a rich diversity of use cases and provocative ideas for how this can be integrated into our own lives. And so that's why we're building PlayLab as a nonprofit. We turn down venture capital, and it's not because we don't think venture capital has a role to play. Like both Seth and I come from the startup world. We think that in this moment, it's important for us to have public infrastructure that can enable all kinds of people to build on top of, both startups as well as educators and nonprofits and other entities, to build AI that's personal, that's relevant, and that's tailored to their specific context. And so what do we mean when we say we're public infrastructure for education in the age of AI? The first and foremost thing we are is we're a creative platform and a creative community. So I know some of you know Scratch, but the idea here is how do you make it easy for anyone to build AI tools, and how do you make it easier for them to share and learn with and from one another? So you can create tools, you can share them with others, and if you find something that someone else has made, you can adapt it to your own context and to your own needs. Oops, there we go. The second thing that we're trying to do is to do research on what tools are actually driving impact. There's a lot of hype and a lot of noise around AI, but there's a lot of questions that we have about when do these tools actually make things better. Has anyone here ever heard of a Scantron machine? Yes, well, a few people have. I'm noticing the Americans. Americans love standardized testing, but there are these machines where if you've taken a multiple choice exam, back in the day of pencil and paper, do you remember filling in the bubbles? There are these machines that people created to make that more efficient. And what they found is that when these were used in schools, a lot of teachers are spending more time running these machines instead of actually giving students rich feedback on work. That's an example of a technology that, when it spread into schools, it didn't actually make teaching and learning better. Right? Multiple choice exams are not as rich as other kinds of exams that require qualitative feedback. And one of the fears that I have personally is that if you look at the hype around AI, having more AI-driven worksheets doesn't lead to the kind of world that I'm personally excited about. I don't think it leads to deeper learning. You might have kids having more worksheet practice, but does that mean they're building intuitions around math? Actually understanding how these ideas make meaning in the world around them? Not necessarily. The other thing that we're trying to do is accelerate open source AI. So all of those tools that most of us are using, they're closed and they're private. They're what some people call black boxes. You don't know how they work. And even open source models like Mistral, we don't know what data it's trained on. For me, that presents a lot of risk, everything from bias and equity to, as we think about building things that are robust and relevant to our use cases, it's hard to do that on top of black boxes. And so one of the things that we're doing is with our partners, and we'll talk about this later, we're collecting data, we're de-identifying it and aggregating it. We did this at Scratch when I was at MIT, and our plan is to do this with this data set as well, but then to use that to accelerate and train open source AI, not just amongst ourselves. Our plan is to share that data with academics and research groups around the world. And so what did we do yesterday? Let's get concrete. We started by dancing. Let's see if the video comes. I guess the video is not embedded, but we danced. We had fun. I had a little video of Christoph, Annette, and René dancing. You can ask them to do it for us again later. We built. Raise your hand if you built a tool in PlayLab yesterday. So you built a product. Right? And keep your hand raised if you think you're going to use a version of the tool that you built. And so quite a few people, just look around. So a lot more people just raise their hands right now than raise their hands when I asked if you built an AI product. And for me, that's really profound. And that was just 20, 30 minutes of making. Imagine if you spend the research that we have. We've been doing this now with about 3,000 educators around the world. We're still in a closed private beta. But of those 3,000 educators, anyone who spent about 10 hours building has gotten to a place where they have robust use cases that are actually reaching, in interesting cases, things that they say are better than what they would do. So there's an example where PBS News in the United States just this last week showed, it's the public broadcasting news station in the United States. They showed a teacher in New York City who built an AI writing feedback coach for his students that gives better feedback than him. He's tested it for the past 3 months. We've seen like a lot of the outputs, and it's giving these very low-income kids the kind of rigorous, personalized coaching and feedback that they never would have received. He doesn't have time, right? He's teaching 150 students, needing to grade essays and give them rich feedback. And now they get rich feedback, and he's spending his time coaching and actually doing the more human work of teaching and learning. And so that's for me, that's what happens when more people can build. And we also shared what we built. This is Dr. Martin's tool that he shared yesterday. And what I'd love to do is, if you don't mind, I'm going to shift, and I'm actually going to bring us into the workspace that we played in yesterday. And so these are the apps and the tools that people built yesterday. We had many, I think nearly 3 dozen apps. Whoops. Drop the mic. Here we go. So we had about 2 dozen apps that people built yesterday, and here we go. I feel disembodied right now, like a humanoid robot maybe. But these are all the projects that people in our community made, and I wanted to just quickly demo one of them. And so why don't we try this product development coach that Martin Tupel made. And so if I come here, you can click launch. And you can try his coach, this real tool that he made. But since we don't have time for a full demo, I'll just take you into the edit. And so this is how he built the tool. On the right, he wrote his instructions, and I know he's going to share a different example later. And then on the left, you can test it, and we can actually see what data it's trained on. So again, it's trained on his knowledge. And we can see past conversations, and what you'll notice is that his tool's also responding in German, right? What's beautiful about LLMs and AI systems is they don't need to be in English. If you're more comfortable in German, or you're more comfortable in Zulu, we've seen people do this in South Africa, you can build tools in your own language, because the programming language is natural language, and it can interact with people in their own languages as well, which is really magical. And the last thing I'll just show you really quickly, so René does not get tired of being my beautiful assistant, is... I'm appreciating the smile over here. I started to build, just to show you how fast it is to make a tool, I started to build the John Zimmerman AI feasibility check. So again, in the top is we're giving the AI instructions. We're just writing, you're an expert in designing technically feasible AI products. I could have added you're an expert critic as well. Your role is to help people. And then you start asking the instructions, right? Ask the user to share their idea. After they respond, then evaluate whether the idea is technically feasible. And I didn't have time to do it. My internet wasn't working. But what we do is we would just download his toolkit, and we'd upload it as a PDF in the reference section. And we can actually start testing this tool. We have a version of it. And obviously, we'd probably need to go through a few iterations. But it's pretty trivial building a lot of products that you can actually use. And so the metaphor I like to use is software is becoming a little bit like woodworking. You can build tools that are like jigs. You use them once, and you can throw it away, and that's okay, right? That's how trivial and easy it should be to build tools using AI. You might also build tools that take hours. The AI writing coach that I was telling you about, that's transformed teaching for this high school English teacher, it took him 1 month to develop it. He spent about 40 hours to build this tool, but now it's saving all of those teachers in his school lots of time, as well as about 50 other teachers around the world who've remixed his tool. They've taken it, they've slightly changed the instructions, so it's tailored to their context. So it's specific to their needs and their community and their values. And so that's it. Let's give René a big round of applause for being our assistant. I'm going to take you quickly into this last 2 slides. I don't want to overstay my welcome. It's okay. We will. We'll find it. Yeah. No, it's totally fine. But look, just the only thing I want to say is, I shared this with the people yesterday. We're very, very early to the era of generative AI and of AI, right? This stuff is old. As I'm not pointing you to John because you're old. You've been working on this, for a long time. Yes, but one of my mentors founded the Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT. Seymour Papert, he was one of the co-founders of the Media Lab as well as the AI Lab. And the reason I share that is this work has been happening since the 50s, since the 60s. The recent leaps in capabilities that we're seeing, they're discontinuous. Right? I had a lot of friends who worked on AI. If you think about what's powering these diffusion models, people would laugh at folks using that technology. It was considered silly, right? I was going to show you some artwork using GANs, which are kind of related to this technology, but that's what it was seen for. It was seen as a toy. It was seen as something used in artistic practice. But the point I want to make for that is two things. Madeline made a beautiful point yesterday around how artistic practice and design can actually push us to explore things that otherwise we would not explore. And one of those things arguably has become transformers and diffusion models. The second thing I think that's really important to share is because we're so early in this new era, we're at a moment where, like the metaphor I shared yesterday, it's like the early days of cinema. When the moving camera came out, people would go into playhouses and record plays. And then the next thing they did is they went outside and they started recording the street. It took decades, almost a century for cinema as we know it to develop into this beautiful, vibrant, rich, diverse art that we all enjoy, that we all love. Well, I'm not going to say everyone loves it. I know I love cinema. But the reason that's important to think about is cinema became what it is because of all the creatives who shaped it. It's not just because of the people who made the cameras, right? And the people who made the cameras and listen to the creatives to think about what they need and what they want. And as you think about how you use AI in your classrooms, in the world today, the thing I want you to think about is both what I shared yesterday. You all have expertise as educators, as designers. You have lived experience as mothers, as fathers, as siblings, as lovers, as friends. But we also have this opportunity to push beyond, right? It's easy to build things that fit in the world that we exist in today. So it's easy to build an AI tool that can make your teaching more efficient, that can, maybe make your students not cheat. But what's most interesting about this kind of technology is that it can open up new possibilities to reimagine, to reinvent, to help us rethink the ways in which we live and the ways in which we do things. I'm coming from the United States. We live in a very broken democracy. One of the things I'm hopeful of is AI could exacerbate some of those challenges. It can make them worse. But there's another path where we can start to use AI to harness human connection, to help us transcend some of the challenges that we're experiencing right now. And my hope for all of you, and my invitation is help be part of the people that are building and leveraging AI in a way that helps us build the kind of society that we want and the kind of design education that we want. Because as Annette reminded us the first day, these complex systems are hard to think about. Like changing complex systems is not easy. It's overwhelming. It can make us feel like we don't have agency. But what's beautiful about the Academy is that your class is your class. You can experiment, you can take risks. It can feel weird. People might look at you a different way, but if you have that courage to take the risks, and now you have a community to take those risks with, I can only imagine the wonderful things that you'll do. And so thank you, and please be in touch. And if you weren't here yesterday, we'll share an invitation for you to join that workspace so you can play with the other people who were here yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf, for this inspiration again and for this opportunity for me to perform as a living robot, or at least type of washing machine. Yeah. Maybe if there are two members of the fourth workshop here, and I will assist you a little bit. Yes, give me a second.
So maybe quick introduction. So hi everyone, my name is Jenny. I would call myself a machine learning designer.
And I'm Martin, I'm an industrial designer, yes.
All right. So, and what I want to do right now is to invite all of you and have a look around this amazing room we are in actually, with all the analog products and the great designs, and that tell a story, and also show us what our profession should and could be about. And some of them are really iconic. Our idea for the input from Yusuf was that actually we realize in our daily teaching and practice that, you know, those things were made with pen and paper and cardboard prototypes, and, you know, and the designers got their hands on, you know, real analog material. And what we see today in our practice is that, you know, the young people, they come with smartphones and they come with nice renderings, and, you know, they are completely immersed in this digital age and technology. And we thought, you know, we don't want to say that one or the other is great or bad, but we want to use AI actually to incorporate the best of two worlds. So, you know, we thought, you know, we want our students to learn the basics of design and aesthetics and you know, the education that we went through, we old people, you know, but also say, like, you know, there's also, of course, an advantage of digital tools and digital skills. And therefore, we used, you know, the prototyping playground you provided us with to come up with a little analog prompting assistant. So meaning that, you know, this AI will, you know, prompt you on a daily basis, or, you know, whatever you feel like you want to do, to come up with some challenges that are related to paper and cardboard, and really get your hands dirty. And do you want to say something about the data we fed into the system?
Yes. So we just turn around. Normally the students go to ChatGPT or the Midjourney and they prompt something and they get a result, and it's kind of an enjoying thing to get some new and fancy information. And we turn it around and we will say, okay, how we can get the AI to give input for the students to be analog, to be manual, and to be, okay. So, and what's interesting, Yusuf mentioned it a few minutes ago. Yes, welcome to Analog Prompting Assistant. Are you ready to get started? It's a little bit unergonomic. It's a simple yes, no, a yes. So, and what we did is we write a small dialogue, but, and that was, I can show you here, we create a long list with paper, with examples. It's a data sampling we discussed and we get from ChatGPT, and we create a long material sampling or task sampling about interesting things to do, like cardboard jobs, like paper boat competition, or bridge building out of paper, and the typical tasks for students, or the spaghetti tower stability challenge, or something like egg drop test. So you have three pieces of paper, and you have to build a construction to throw an egg out of the second floor, and it has to survive. So that was the interesting thing. We create a PDF, and we could give it into our tool, and this was the base where the communication starts at the base of these samplings of tasks, and then he makes examples what you can do, and the students could communicate in a special frame of possibilities. Yeah. So, and now I have to read because I can't read anything here. So let's jump in right in. Could you read it? No. I will make. Okay, welcome to Analog Prompting Assistant. Are you ready to get started? Yes, that's the student. So then the robot said, okay, fantastic, let's jump right in. I have a variety of challenges here that will put your creativity and engineering skills to test. How about starting with something architectural? Here's your challenge. Paper bridge building, and so on. So they have a task, and they have to build it. And then you can say, okay, one moment. And then, okay, the communication ends because now the students has to go in practice, and there's of course a teacher necessary. So we go out of the digital world into the manual analog world, and this is maybe a tool to create more conversation and bring it back in the real world here.
Yeah, and it was just amazing. I think, you see it's not the perfect prototype, but it's a quick and dirty prototype, and it took us 20 minutes to build. And of course, it's, not perfect, and there can be added more, but, it's just a starting point, and showing that, there is a possibility to really, incorporate digital and analog systems and activities in this world. And yeah, we think that's... it's a co-creation instead of, leaving it all to the AI agents and the digital world. So I think that, we are looking forward to this.
Okay, thank you. Yusuf, anything you would like to ask or to add to this performance?
I'm excited to just see what people build. So I think keep iterating on this, and I know we many people asked, but you can keep using this tool. So keep using it, share what you design, and if you have feedback, this is still a beta product. Like I just went full time on this, a month and a half ago. So ideas and feedback, please share them. Thank you.
And Yusuf, thank you so much for this really generous gift. Letting us allow to play this play out.
And I just want to emphasize that for those of you who weren't here yesterday, it is incredibly generous that we are getting to use this software. I don't know if we can manage to pull up the QR code, but we can otherwise share that on our website later on. You are all invited into this space to use the software tool. And that's where I have to tell you that I am not an early adopter of technology myself, actually. I always kind of let other people try it first, and then I think I should be using it, right? And that's kind of how I've been feeling about AI. And I don't even have a subscription to ChatGPT yet. I still use the free version. And so I kind of came to this thinking like, right, this is the thing that I should be listening to because I should be doing that. And what the last 2 days have done to me personally is that you have moved me from I should be doing this to, I absolutely want to be doing this. This is so fun and so inspiring and so accessible, and actually it can be so much simpler than I always thought it would be. And I'm really, really grateful for that I now know where to start. There's a tool where I can begin, and I just also really feel moved to make that part of my practice. And I hope that I'm not the only one who feels that way, right? Yeah, I'm hearing some yeses. And so with that, I just want to extend an enormous amount of gratitude, first and foremost, of course, to our speakers. You traveled here from faraway places. You spent a really significant amount of time with us and became part of this community and sharing your wisdom, your inspiration, and your work. So thank you for doing that. And equal amounts of gratitude go to all of you who were here and participated over the last couple of days. And I think that these quick demonstrations really, to me, always are also a show of the creativity and energy that is in this group, right? The kinds of things that you just came up with in like 20 minutes that really took this into directions are so inspiring. Like this last prototype, it makes me think of this kind of subversive AI that doesn't do what you ask it to do, but does something else. That's so cool, right? And I love that we're able to generate that together. That's not a typical way for strangers to come together, right? We just didn't know each other. We don't spend a lot of time with each other, but we meet here and we just do and make. And I think that that's really the best way of how we can spend our time. So thank you for that from my side. Thank you for an inspiring couple of days. I know we will meet again, right? And that's why I'll pass it to you, René.
Thank you. I would like to continue by thanking the gracious host, who let us be in this inspiring and spectacular space. So thank you, Angelika Nollert, Director of Die Neue Sammlung, for letting us being here again, please.
So how great was it again? We had 2.5 days together, and maybe you could also feel it. It was days of, really tension, full of dynamics, full of discussions, and I think everybody learned something again, and looking forward to learn more and more. We spoke about the change of education. We spoke about reform systems as well. So reforms start in education, of course, but also reforms are starting in museums, as you saw. And for us as a museum, it's very important. We are doing exhibitions. We are presenting, of course, like here, objects, materials. We discuss it, we communicate it. But for a museum, and especially for a design museum, we feel it's absolutely important to be part of a learning system, to give a platform for discourses, to have a look what is the cutting edge research at the moment, and then also to give it to the public. And I'm very proud to be the partner of the ERF Foundation, thanks to Annette Diefenthaler, to Christoph Böninger, to René Spitz. And I think it was really valuable. We could experience a lot of, you said, inspiring things, a lot of really bringing things to another level, I would say. And thank you so very much. Thank you also everybody who is here. And so many of you are here with us. This is also great. We are a learning community, but we are a growing learning community, and that's the best what can happen. Thanks a lot.
Last but not least, I want to thank the behind-the-scenes team that makes all of this run so smoothly. First and foremost, Steven Stannard. Steven, where are you?
He's up there. He's hiding.
Steven. Thank you. Steven, in fact, runs most of the work, so without him, nothing of this would have been realized. Thank you, Steven. Thank you to the team of communication, Claudia Neumann, Greta, for all your support, and thank you to the film responsible for the cameras, behind the cameras, for film, for photography, and for the technical setup. Without you, nothing of this would be possible to share it with our audience worldwide. Thank you. At the end, I would like to invite you to visit our website, where you can find everything we do, and that is recorded, transcribed, share it, use it, remix it, talk about it, and let us know. Please let us know. Please, your feedback is highly appreciated. If you have been working with us for 3 days of these workshops, or if you just attended to the symposium, see some impulses on the videos, try to integrate it in your teaching. Let us know what you do with this. Take some pictures, write us some notes, make a video, whatsoever. We would love to hear from you what you do with these impulses. This is why we do it. Luckily, this series will continue. Our next event in June is on responsible value-based leadership and sustainability and public value. And then in October on innovation, and next year in March, in exactly 1 year, on creativity. So we would love to see many of you here again. Now enjoy some conversation, and thank you for being here.